She was just another face in the crowded training hall, quietly observing the elite soldiers as they drilled with precision and intensity. No one knew her story. No one except the general, who paused mid-step, looked directly at her, and whispered a single word that would change everything: legend. How did she earn that title without ever stepping forward? What she did next would leave even the most hardened warriors in awe. The training hall buzzed with controlled chaos. Soldiers sprinted across the gym floor, rifles clutched tightly, boots pounding in unison. Commands rang out sharp and precise, bouncing off the high ceilings, a rhythm of discipline that few could match. Amid the organized storm, she stood at the back, a quiet observer. At first glance, she seemed like anyone else who had wandered into the hall, just another trainee trying to find her footing. But those who glanced her way might have noticed a different kind of intensity in her eyes, a sharpness that suggested she was seeing more than just the surface. Her name was whispered rarely, often overlooked in the hierarchy of those vying for attention. While others sought recognition through loud displays of strength or daring maneuvers, she remained in the shadows, absorbing everything. Every move the soldiers made, every drill executed, every small mistake or brilliant improvisation, nothing escaped her notice. It wasn't just curiosity that kept her there, it was a deep understanding that sometimes the most critical lessons come not from action, but from observation. This wasn't her first exposure to high-stakes environments. She had spent years honing her instincts, sharpening her mind in situations where a single misstep could have catastrophic consequences. Yet, she carried herself without arrogance or need for validation. She didn't take notes. She didn't interrupt or correct. She simply watched, quietly, patiently, letting her mind piece together patterns that others were too busy to see. Even among the seasoned soldiers, whispers began to circulate. Who was the woman standing at the back, watching everything but saying nothing? Some thought she was inexperienced, or perhaps a bureaucratic observer with no real stake in the action. Others, more perceptive, began to sense there was more to her presence than met the eye. Her gaze never wavered, and when she finally moved, she did so with deliberate precision, a quiet confidence that made those around her take notice, even if they didn't understand why. For her, this was never about recognition or accolades. It was about understanding the dynamics of the room, the people, and the strategies in play. She could predict movements, anticipate decisions, and foresee potential failures before they happened. And though she was just watching, the impact of her silent vigilance was already rippling through the ranks in ways no one fully realized, except for one man, the general. It was his sharp eyes that first truly saw her, not the observer everyone else dismissed, but the strategist, the analyst, the quiet force with a presence that demanded attention without demanding it. In a world where noise often overshadows talent, he recognized her value instantly. The stage was set for a moment that would redefine everything about her role, and how everyone, from rookies to commanders, would come to see her. It started with small things, moments others might have dismissed as inconsequential. A misaligned rifle on the firing line, a misstep during a tactical drill, a subtle lapse in formation. She noticed them all. But she didn't call attention to herself or correct anyone outright. Instead, she absorbed the errors and patterns, storing them in her mind like pieces of a complex puzzle. Over time, her quiet observations became her superpower. She saw what others couldn't: the ripple effect of a single mistake, the vulnerabilities in an otherwise perfect plan, the hidden strengths that could be leveraged at the right moment. Her first real test came unexpectedly. During a high-intensity scenario designed to simulate a hostage extraction, a rookie team member froze at the worst possible moment. The situation could have escalated quickly, but she caught it before it did. Without a word, she signaled subtly to the team, a minor adjustment in position, a small shift in formation, almost imperceptible. Yet the change was enough to prevent a critical failure. The team executed the drill flawlessly, and while no one knew exactly who had guided them, the general's eyes lingered on her. Another instance occurred during a strategy briefing. The officers were focused on conventional tactics, debating the merits of force versus stealth. She, Still just watching, spoke up with a single observation, a detail about the terrain that had been overlooked. It was brief, almost casual, yet it reshaped the team's entire approach. Her insight allowed them to anticipate enemy movements and avoid potential ambushes in simulation. Quietly, the general nodded, a subtle acknowledgement that her mind was not just present, it was formidable. Even outside formal drills, her vigilance mattered. She noticed how morale shifted subtly among soldiers, which small gestures encouraged confidence and which subtle criticisms eroded it. She tracked fatigue, stress levels, and mental readiness, understanding that battles weren't just won through brute force, but through understanding the human element. Her notes were internal, her contributions invisible to most, but they mattered profoundly. By now, rumors began to circulate, whispered in the corners of the barracks. Have you noticed her? She doesn't do much, yet somehow she's always right. I think she's seeing things we can't. Nobody could pinpoint exactly how she operated, only that when she did, things tended to go right. She was becoming a silent architect of success, shaping outcomes with an invisible hand. And the general, ever observant, saw a rare and precious thing. Someone who could command without commanding, who could influence without intruding. Every unnoticed act, every subtle intervention, built toward a tipping point, a moment when her silent vigilance would no longer be enough. The room, the soldiers, the general himself, were on the brink of recognizing that just watching had always been a misnomer. She had been shaping legends all along, quietly, meticulously, and now the time had come for her actions to speak louder than words. The day came quietly, without fanfare. Another grueling exercise, another test of skill and coordination. Soldiers moved with precision, executing drills they had repeated countless times. Yet, amidst the familiar chaos, something shifted. She was watching, as always, but this time her presence carried weight. Every eye in the hall seemed drawn to her, not because she sought attention, but because her quiet authority emanated from a place deeper than words. It happened during a live-fire tactical scenario. The plan seemed sound on paper, but subtle misalignments threatened the team's success. A miscalculated angle here, a delayed reaction there, tiny errors, almost imperceptible, but enough to compromise the mission. Most would have dismissed them, but she didn't. She intervened, not with orders, but with subtle guidance, gestures, positioning, a carefully timed signal that corrected the course without disrupting the flow. The team executed the maneuver flawlessly, and for a moment, the hall was silent except for the echo of boots hitting the floor. The general paused mid-step, scanning the room. His eyes locked on her. He saw not just the adjustments she had made, but the intent behind them, the awareness, the foresight, the uncanny ability to anticipate and adapt. No one else had noticed the full scope of her influence, but he had. He walked toward her slowly, deliberately. The room seemed to hold its breath. Soldiers and officers alike sensed the gravity of the moment. When he reached her, he stopped and looked down, his expression unreadable for a heartbeat. Then, in a voice that carried authority, yet something warmer, almost reverent, he said the word that would change everything: legend. The word hung in the air, simple yet monumental. It wasn't a casual compliment or an offhand remark. It was recognition of a rare kind of excellence, one that required vision, patience, and humility. She had never sought to be a legend. She had only sought to see clearly, to understand deeply, to act wisely. And in that moment, her silent vigilance became undeniable. The reactions were immediate. Some soldiers stared in awe, trying to reconcile the quiet observer they had overlooked with the legend the general had just named. Others smiled knowingly, the ones who had suspected her capabilities all along. For her, it was a quiet triumph, not of ego, but of validation. Every unnoticed observation, every subtle intervention, every moment she had simply watched and learned, had led to this acknowledgement. In the days that followed, her presence in the training hall was different. She was no longer just a watcher. She was a figure whose insight and judgment commanded respect. But she remained herself, humble, focused, and observant. The title of legend was not a crown she wore lightly. It was a responsibility, a recognition that true influence often comes not from loud action, but from quiet mastery. And as the general returned to his duties, he knew that he had just witnessed the rise of someone extraordinary, someone who had transformed from a silent observer into a guiding force that would leave a lasting mark on everyone around her.